Hey guys, what's up? We're working on a more expensive gaming build today. The budget for parts in this build was about $1,800, and I mean, at $1,800 you can do a lot of cool shit. And by cool shit I mean we have an amazing processor that's going to be overclocked to however high we can push it. Most of them end at 4.6 to 4.8. We've got Crossfire at 7970s. Holy shit, this is overkill for 1080p gaming. Hopefully you get a 1440p monitor with this kind of graphics setup, because this is a really powerful graphics setup. We've got an SSD, the 250 gigabyte version of the Samsung 840 EVO, oh my god, and RAM and all that good stuff. Yeah, so this will be a fun build. For our CPU stuff, we've got a gigabyte UD3H, we've got the 4770K, and we've got the Thermaltake 3.0 Extreme. I still like the UD3H. It's a good board, only 140 bucks. Lets me do all my overclocking. Plenty of features on the board for pretty much any standard rig. I mean, there are more boards with more features if you want them, but this one's got plenty enough for me. The Thermaltake 3.0 is a nice water cooler, a nice CLC. It'll let us overclock to however high the chip will voltage cap out on, and it's quiet. The fans that come with it are cool. That'll be good. 8 gigs of RAM. RAM is RAM. Who cares, right? Am I right or am I right? 2 terabyte hard disk drive, and then 840 gigabyte SSD. SSD is good for putting programs on, your operating system on, for quick boots, for quick programs, for whatever you want to be quick, I guess. And then hard disk drive is good for having extra storage for media. Got a DVD reader, which is just a DVD reader. It's probably cost 15 bucks. Do people even read DVDs anymore? I don't even know. I don't. 750 watt high power supply. We're cutting it pretty close, although the maximum wattage for this build is still below 750. I think it came out to like 708. Some people might want to go higher, like an 850 watt power supply. You don't really need to go any higher though. 750 should be enough for this. Got a copy of Windows 8 because this is 2013 and we're not going to be buying Windows 7 anymore because that's for idiots. And we've got two 7970s, which are good graphics cards, right? 2 of these are cheaper than a 780 and they will outperform said 780, which makes them a good choice. The RAM might be listed as the 1-stick version. I think we have the 2-stick version for this. Whichever one you end up getting, it's just whichever one is cheaper at the time. Dual channel RAM is a bit overblown. It's not going to help you much. And by much, I mean not at all. Unless you're doing some weird RAM intensive operation that needs dual channel or takes advantage of dual channel. And if you don't know if you're doing an operation like that, then you probably aren't. All of this is going inside of a fractal design Define R4. Pretty big fanboy of this case. It's quiet. It's got enough space for everything. I've never had trouble putting a radiator in here. And it looks nice. Sorry. Okay. Before we start, Yeah, okay, never mind. I'm sorry. I'm using the right RAM. Stop. Oh god. So anyway, chat's making me second guess myself. I'm working, I've got like 3 or 4 different builds going on this week. Making sure I don't have anything mixed up. Keep the bag for trash. This is a black case, black with a window. Instruction booklets will go down there. Let me bring my chair around. Somebody's asking if they can see a little bit more detail on the case. Yeah, sure. We can look at things in a little bit more detail today. Today my neck is bothering me, so if I seem like I'm an asshole more so today than I usually am, then that's probably why. I think I slept on it weird yesterday. Which normally doesn't happen to me. It's kind of strange, but... Alright. Before we do anything else, we're going to go ahead and throw in the power supply. Power supply allows us to have the computer plugged into the wall, and because we live in America and our electrical outlets are built to code, well, depending on where you live, plugging it in means that we can ground ourselves on the power supply, in the case, and all that good stuff. We don't have to worry about shocking everything and all that good stuff, right? Because we don't want to destroy our parts with electrostatic discharge, even though I'm pretty sure it's impossible to do that, but it helps keep the more OCD people who watch these videos happy, so that I don't have to have a comment section filled with people copying and pasting videos about how ESD is destroying all of your computer parts. Even though, in all actuality, to destroy a computer part with ESD would require an amazing amount of dedication, but as you're building computers, break down boxes as you go. You'll be very surprised how much leftover junk there is. You don't break down boxes and throw them away as you are assembling the system. Trust me on this. Hive book, if you want to read about your power supply, I guess. There's a little group called Snarky Puppy, and they used to put, they release albums with, like, would you call it, I guess you could call it jazz, kind of big band, I don't know if I'd call it big band, kind of big band jazzy arrangements, and they just put out this new album recently. I think it's called Family Dinner, and I have this song stuck in my head. Oh my goodness, that Greek chick, dude. If you watch my stream, we all listened to that video last night like 3 or 4 times. One of the things I like about this case is, can we see here? There's padding, right? To keep it quieter, which is nice. And this stuff looks nice. It's not plasticky or cheap looking, like a lot of cases are. Not to call any case out, but I like the insulation on these cases. Somebody in chat asked if it's bulletproof. I don't believe so. Somebody else asked, is it safe to have a PC on the carpet? Yes and no. So the way that it works is, in regards to static electricity, if you've got a computer sitting on the carpet, it's not going to get shocked to death or anything, as long as you're not dragging it across the carpet. And even if you were dragging it across the carpet, the static electricity is only being discharged into the case, which should be fine because it's just a case. You're not going to short a case out. However, one reason why people advocate not putting computers on the carpet, and this is something we'll look at in a second, is that your power supply, this thing, has a fan on the bottom that sucks cool air up into it to keep it nice and cool. Typically in a build, you will want the power supply facing down so that it's sucking cool air from the bottom of the case. And can you kind of see? You can kind of see that there's a vent here, right? If this is sitting on a really shaggy carpet or really thick carpet or carpet with really thick padding beneath it, and it sinks into the floor, it becomes very hard for the power supply to suck up cool air from beneath the case. Which is a bad thing, right? Do I need to say that? Do I need to explain that that's a bad thing? If I can throw out a little piece of life advice for you right here, don't get carpet. If you can find a house with hardwood floor, it's so much easier to maintain than carpet. So much easier to maintain than carpet. And it looks nicer too. And you don't have to replace it every 5 or 6 years. Some people in the chat are bringing up, they're worried that they installed their power supply wrong. If you installed it with the fan facing up, it's not going to hurt anything. It might be harder for the cables. You can see that the cables are on this side, which you would want near the motherboard so that you can route them through the back. But I mean, if you're sucking, the problem with putting it this way is you're just sucking warm air off of the graphics card. And ideally you don't want to do that, but I mean, if you do, and it's just like a standard system, and you're not like pushing the edge of performance or whatever, then you're probably going to be okay. Typically, power supplies come with a bag of 4 screws. I'll use those screws on the back here to screw the power supply in. Oops. Don't over tighten every time. I'll probably repeat this 20,000 times. If you've ever watched a video of me doing this, you've probably heard me say this 20,000 times. When you're doing screws, just lightly screw them in. Don't tighten them at all. Just get them all screwed in until you have all 4 in. Once you have all 4 in, then you can go back and begin tightening them. If you over tighten one screw, you might be able to get another one in, but getting all 4 in will become much harder than it has to. Dude, I double, triple checked. There's a guy in my chat who's very scared that I have the wrong RAM. I have the right RAM. It's on the parts list that the guy ordered. Power supply installed. I'm just gonna go ahead and route these cables behind the tray right now because I know they're gonna go back there anyway. I'm also gonna go ahead and just pull these cables out because I can stick them through individually when the time is right. The time is when I'm ready, whatever. These are all going out the back. They're going through the lowest grommet, right? You can see that because that's the coolest grommet to shove them through. Garbage. I'm gonna go ahead and plug this in. everybody's got like a different order for putting stuff together. For me personally, I like to put the accessory drives in first before we start getting into all of the complicated building stuff, because it's easy. I don't like to be putting in like a DVD drive or a hard disk drive where there's the motherboard and the cooler and the radiator and all that stuff is in the way. I like to just throw this stuff in now. Sometimes you'll have to change the positioning of it later, because that helps, but apparently Aslan's decided that the trash bag is now his. Aslan, hey. Hey. I guess he can fight with all the trash I throw in there. Typically, the case you're working with will come with the necessary screws and whatnot to attach accessory drives to the system. Looks like these drives screw in from the bottom. There's a lot of questions in chat in regards to overclocking. This is an well, I don't know. Here, I'm going to give you the complete and total honest opinion, and this is coming from somebody that's built and shipped maybe 30 or 40 systems so far, and I've overclocked over half of them. You can reach your maximum overclock speed on a given chip with a $20 cooler, about as well as you can hit it with a $150 cooler. If you're worried that your cooler is not going to perform as well as another one, it probably will. Obviously, more expensive coolers tend to run a little bit more on the cold side, but a processor working at 85 max temps is going to work just as well as a processor working at 65 max temps. Just something to keep in mind. Typically, the reason why we go the CLC route, CLC stands for closed loop cooler, so that's like a water cooler that you don't have to maintain or do any work with yourself, is because it looks nice and because the temps are usually a little bit better than the hard radiator sitting on top of the CPU counterparts. Although that's not always true. And the temperature gains to be had from, oh, these look really nice. How does the commercial go? This is the SSD. Typically you aren't talking about huge temperature gains moving over to CLCs, but if you have a good CLC, at the moment, like this Thermaltake 3.0 will outperform any Noctua cooler or any Fantex cooler on the market, but not by much. Temperatures do matter more when you're talking about graphics cards, because I think AMD cards or NVIDIA cards or both, or maybe it depends. Some graphics cards I know will downclock themselves as soon as they hit 80 Celsius, and they will continue to downclock themselves, which can be a direct hit in gaming performance. which is pretty obvious, right? Screwing on the SSD. Getting a bigger power supply, there's no downside to it. If you want to buy bigger power supplies, you can. The only downside to a bigger power supply is that most people don't have an unlimited budget. And if your budget is only $1,000 and you're getting a power supply, oh god, I just dropped that screw. If you're getting a power supply that's too big, that means that you're getting a worse graphics card or CPU than you could be getting, obviously, because you're spending more money on the PSU. Somebody said if there's too high a difference between your max wattage and the power supply and what you're actually using, it can open a rift into another dimension. Okay. I guess that's possible. I've never seen it happen before, though. We have our solid state drive and a hard disk drive in. We're going to go ahead and throw our DVD drive in. I don't have my SSD mounted, I just have it sitting on my case, or in my case, flat on the ground. This will not affect anything, right? Somebody in chat just asked that. Yeah, I mean, you can just throw the SSD in if you want. I mean, you don't have to attach anything, really. I mean, theoretically, you could have the motherboard just hanging, and it would be fine, but most people like to attach things because it looks nicer. How strange. There are 9 small screws in this bag. Maybe they plan on you losing one? When you're screwing in the DVD drive, I highly recommend putting in all 4 screws instead of just putting in 2. It seems kind of silly, but if you ever have to transport your computer, you can actually break off stuff in here if it's not secured evenly on both sides. Sounds highly unlikely, but I'm telling you from experience that that definitely can happen. Somebody in chat asked, is there liquid cooling for GPUs and stuff as well? You can buy, if you go the water cooling route, you can get loops that can incorporate additional radiators over GPUs. However, the setup for that is significantly more complicated than just installing just putting in a graphics card. Typically that requires a lot more work, and you have to do more research to figure that stuff out. All right. I'm going to go ahead and put in the standoffs for the motherboard. Somebody in chat is asking, and I get this question kind of a lot, if I put together builds for people in Europe, I can do it. However, it's typically not worth it for you because the cost of shipping is outrageous. Well, I shouldn't say outrageous, it's overseas. It's very expensive. It'll cost maybe $300 to $500. I did a quote once for somebody living in Sweden, and the cost to ship the build was like over $400 or $500. So. Do you offer advice for building on my own? If you're looking for just like advice on parts and whatnot, I would suggest there's the Build a PC subreddit or other forums on the internet where you can post and seek advice. As much as I love giving advice, having a whole bunch of people emailing me asking for part suggestions gets a little bit overwhelming. Can you explain what a standoff is? Okay, so on the back of your motherboard, you can see there's a whole bunch of shit. I don't even know what the actual names are. Can we call them transistors? That are exposed on the back of your motherboard. The problem with putting these onto all of those things onto a case itself is that when you do that, you short the board out because the electrical signals are all supposed to travel down very specific paths. There are specific paths on a motherboard. If you look, you can see the drawings on the board and whatnot, where the electricity is supposed to flow from one part to another. When you put it onto a motherboard, when you put the motherboard onto a surface that's completely conductive, what happens is all of those electrical signals can travel anywhere. That's where the term short comes from. Short circuit is when you have two paths that are supposed to connect one way and you just short it out by connecting things that aren't supposed to be connected. That's what a short circuit means. The idea behind standoffs are you put standoffs into the case, they elevate the motherboard off of the case, and where the standoffs connect, there's no electrically conducive parts on the board itself, meaning that no harm comes to your motherboard. If you install a motherboard into a case with no standoffs, then you run the risk of shorting the board out when you power the computer on, which will either, in a best case scenario, means that your build won't work. In a worst case scenario, you will permanently destroy your computer. I'm not sure if it would permanently destroy it or not, but you can I don't know, I shouldn't say it. I don't recommend going to 4chan for tech advice because it's impossible to verify the credentials of anybody offering any advice. There is a lot of good advice in G, but there's also a lot of bad advice in G, and it's really hard to distinguish. If you're the kind of person that needs advice from a public forum, you're probably not the kind of person that can distinguish bad advice from good advice, which makes forums like that. Although really the same is true for anything, although upvotes and downvotes help a little bit on Build a PC, although people can upvote bad information too, but... Okay, so our case is prepared. We're ready to stick the motherboard in it. Good to go. when Intel was making Haswell and Ivy Bridge, they cheaped out on the way that they put the chips together, and they have it set up so that instead of just soldering the integrated heat spreader, which is that nickel-plated cap on the top of the CPU, instead of soldering that to the computer die, they just kind of glued it onto the PCB, the printed circuit board that the chip is on, which means the connection is really bad, and the ability to transfer heat from the die to the IHS, and the IHS connects to your aftermarket cooler, is compromised quite severely. So what most people do, or anybody that wants to overclock a lot does, is you knock off the cap from the CPU, you scrape off the glue, and then you reapply some kind of thermal compound to the die, and then you overclock with much cooler temperatures. This is called de-lidding. This is not for the faint of heart, although to be honest, if you're at least somewhat educated, you should be fine doing this. We're going to knock off this die, this IHS from this PCB. We're going to use a vise to grip that, and then we're going to smack it with a hammer until everything falls off. This is about as close as I can get my webcam. Our little setup. Vise is attached to the countertop. It's not going anywhere. Get it nice and tight. You've got a hard block of wood. You cannot use soft wood for this. The wood will just break. You need very hard wood. I think this is some variant of oak. I don't know anything about wood though. I know that the first kind of wood I used was not hard enough. If you want to be extra careful, you can put a little cloth underneath so that when the CPU thing falls off, it doesn't break. Although it's not going to break, even if it falls onto a hard surface. But block of wood goes right here. And for the hammer, we're going to hit right there. I don't think I can move my webcam any closer. You should be able to make out most of what's going on, right? From right there. The vise isn't on tight enough. I reset the vise. Put the chip on again. Tighten. I wasn't really hitting it that hard either. Alright, you have to hit this really hard. I don't know why I didn't hit it that hard. Sorry. There we go. Once you have it off, it should look like this. You can see the die underneath, you can see the glue stuff on the borders, and then you have this, which is just the top of your thing. You can see the problem that I'm talking about is the black gunk all around the edge. That epoxy-based glue stuff, that's what we're going to be scraping off. this on a plastic bag so people don't freak out, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I usually recommend using some kind of credit card or ID card or any plastic card. It's fine for removing this stuff. First lap around, I'll just use my fingernail. I'm just looking to remove the excess. You can be as rough with your fingernail as you want, assuming that you're not Wolverine, or you haven't in other ways been genetically modified, or you haven't installed like steel nails. Your nails aren't hard enough on our Buddy Rock's scale of hardness to actually break through or damage the PCB, and neither is the plastic card. After I've removed the excess, I take the plastic card, and we'll run through and remove the rest of the gunk. And now you can see the difference between one side and the other, right? Where the gunk was removed and the gunk remains. And you can actually see from the side how thick that gunk is. You can see the black gunk sticking up from the chip. It's almost as thick as the die itself. Removing all of that gunk means that we get a better contact between our die and our IHS. A lot of people always ask me why Intel went this route in regards to their processors. I'm guessing it's just because it's cheaper to do it this way. And most people don't care about it, because most people don't even overclock their CPUs. Most people that buy K-series chips don't even overclock their CPUs, which is sad in and of itself, but there are a lot of things in regards to overclocking you can do that require a lot of effort and give you minimal temperature gains. This is not one of those things. This requires a fair bit of effort, but the temperature gains are tremendous. Easily gain 15 to 25 degrees off your load temps by going the delitting route. If you get a Haswell chip or an Ivy Bridge chip, I don't know why you'd still be buying an Ivy Bridge chip, but if you get one and you intend to overclock, I think that every person that overclocks should be delitting their chip. Some people disagree with that because they think this is hard or scary. It's not hard, it's not scary. You can buy other cheaper Pentium 4s to practice on first that cost 50 cents a pop. But I definitely think this is a worthy investment of your time if you really want to get into overclocking your chip as far as it can go. And it behooves you, especially if you're spending hundreds of dollars on a cooling setup, and if you get a really good motherboard, a K-series chip, and an aftermarket cooler, you pretty much are. It behooves you not to invest the little bit of time necessary to remove the lid off the cap, or to remove the cap from the CPU, to maximize your contact between the die and this IHS. Somebody in chat is being silly. I'm not going to respond to it. I think I'm getting lay baited, and that's okay, because my neck hurts too much to care. I'm debating going to like one of those massage places. I've never done it before. I don't think I've ever had a professional massage before. but it's been a long time since I've hurt my neck by sleeping on it weird, and it's very aggravating to me. I'm pretty aggravated right now. Do I seem pretty aggravated? I need to try harder on my aggravated things. My aggravated attitude? Destiny, tell people what the acronyms mean. All this techno jibber jabber can be hard for people. What acronyms would you like clarification on? CPU is Central Processing Unit, which is the thing that executes all the instructions in your build. After I've removed all of the gunk, I'm going through with a highly concentrated solution of isopropylated alcohol, or isopropyl alcohol, and I'm cleaning off all the remaining junk. Oh, sorry. PCB is the printed circuit board. That's a circuit board that you put cool stuff on. So your motherboard is a giant PCB with parts on it. Your graphics card is a giant PCB with a GPU on it. And the CPU is a PCB with a computer die on it, right? By the time you finish all your cleaning, you've got a nice clean chip. The reflection should be strong. You can see things in the background from the monitor, right? Or the webcam itself. Then you've got this guy. You can still see a lot of black gunk inside the ridges, but that's okay. You don't have to worry about inside the ridges. That's not going to affect anything. We are going to be applying on the lid of this. I want the contact between this die and the bottom of the IHS to be as good as humanly possible, or inhumanly possible, I guess. Nothing about this is very human, huh? So I'm using something called Liquid Pro from Cool Laboratory. This stuff is the shit. It's a 100% metallic compound, metallic alloy compound. This material is unlike anything you've ever used before in your entire life. You apply a very, 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 very small amount onto this, and you can spread it around with a toothpick. You should always do it a little bit somewhere else first. I'm going to go right on here and hope that I over-squirt and get it all over the carpet again. I'm going to blame Aslan for it. Oh god, it's going to happen. It's not beautiful. As you can see, there is a very, 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 very small amount. Very small amount on here. Whoops, right? Itty bitty. I'm going to use they come with Q-tips. You can use to spread the magic. like to talk a lot while doing this because I don't want to breathe or get anything foreign onto the top of the stuff. Some people have asked, a really common question is, won't the fibers from the Q-tips get stuck onto there? They do not. The fibers from the Q-tips won't get stuck on there because they won't get pulled onto there. Like I said, that material is very, very, very unique. You've never in your life used a material similar to what that stuff is. You won't have to worry about it just like randomly the Q-tip just getting stuck on there. It won't happen. I've probably delidded 15, 20 of these chips and it's never happened to me before. I cleaned the bottom of this off with my isopropyl alcohol, and now I'm going to just set it on top. Once you've set it on top, you're going to want to put the CPU away until we're ready to put it onto the motherboard. This is not attached. Now if I turn this over, or if I mess with it the wrong way, it will just come off. It's not like glue, it's not going to hold it there. All right, we're done with that. Next, we'll prepare the motherboard. Are there notification sounds going on my computer right now? I'm sorry, hold on. What's going on? What's the noise coming on my computer? Does anybody know what the noise is? Bing, ba, bing. Oh. Is it this noise? It was that? Oh, sorry. Alright, that should be done. Drink water, it's good for you. A quick note, I'm not sponsored by any of the companies whose parts I'm representing. The only sponsor I have is a peripheral sponsor and a razor sponsor. So don't ever think that any of the tips I'm giving you in regards to parts are things that I'm being paid to say. I'm looking at picking up some sponsors down the line, but I will never, ever, ever promote a product that I don't think is the best, absolute best product for a given situation. Just an FYI. In case you're worried about that ever happening. Unless somebody paid me a ton of money. I guess if I got enough money, I would do it. I would screw you guys over, but it would have to be a lot, and I don't think anybody's about to offer me enough money. I don't think anybody's going to pay me enough money to lie to everybody about things. Not to say that it can't happen down the line, but... you probably actually shouldn't be breaking down all the boxes like that, because if you've got to RMA stuff, it's going to be really hard, but I don't RMA anything because none of my stuff ever breaks, because I'm really cool, so... touching my case to make sure that I'm grounded. Another beautiful motherboard. Alright, first things first, I'm going to go ahead and install the CPU. I wonder if I can get my camera closer for this stuff. I don't really have a stand for this, unfortunately. Maybe I could use the vise. Oh my god, I could use the vise to hold the camera. Ingenious. Let's do that. There we go. Oh, I should have did this for the delidding stuff. Alright, depress this lever, drag it to the side, this thing pops up. Okay, and again, we have to be very, very, very careful with the CPU because this lid will fall off if we're not careful with it. Once I have this open, go ahead and pop the CPU in, close it. I'm going to depress the lever. This black thing will pop off. You always want to keep this thing. If you have to RMA the motherboard, you're going to need that piece. The way that I like to do RAM is I'll push it in this side as hard as I can, and then I come back down on this side and push. You can see this little thing here. When you've pushed it in enough, will close automatically. Put in the next one. And again, I just push it in that direction until I know it's all the way in over here. Oops, hold on. And then we just push down over here until it closes, and I know it's in all the way. Do the same over here. It's in all the way. For RAM slots, you typically want them in opposing things so that they run in dual channel. It's not a big deal, but so I would either want to use slots 2 and 4, or I would want to use slots 1 and 3. Usually 1 and 3 is for channel 1, although I guess it might depend on some other words. I've worked with this motherboard a lot, so. Pretty much done with all this stuff now. Gonna move the motherboard over here to my desk. Gonna lift our case up. Before we stick in our motherboard, we're going to remove these two little kind of air vent blocker things, since we're going to be installing a radiator up here for the CLC. Once we've removed both of these things, our case is pretty much ready for the motherboard to go in. If you skip to the middle of this for whatever reason, I can't imagine why you would. I've already got the standoffs installed. We're touching the case to make sure we're grounded. Pretend we did that before we picked up the motherboard. I'm going to move this a little bit out of the way. Just kidding. We're going to go ahead and pop in our I/O panel. Typically, PS2 ports are at the top, and the volume stuff is at the bottom. We're going to take off these little protectors from our motherboard for the slots, because sometimes they mess up going through the I/O panel. Go ahead and set that down. Can we get the camera in here? I don't know if I can do it. Good enough. If you have motion sickness, you probably should have closed your eyes. So right now I'm going to go around to all of the standoffs that I've put in and screw everything down. The I/O panel for this motherboard has like foam padding on the back, which makes everything stick out a little bit. So you've got to apply a bit of pressure to the left, which is really annoying, in order to get the standoffs to line in correctly. What I used to do is I would just rip that foam padding off. Not sure why I stopped doing that. If you get the top left screw in, oh my god. You get the top left screw in first, it makes everything else a lot easier. Just going around. Now all of the screws that I'm screwing in now are lining up perfectly with the standoffs that we installed before putting the motherboard in. What is today? Today's Monday, right? I'm going to the Outback tonight, dude. There shouldn't be people there, right? Not many people. I want a steak so bad. Alright, everything's screwed in. We hit all 9 of our standoffs. Now we're going to connect what we can from our power supply, just so that we can get as much down as we can. Like, Aslan, don't even start. The less things we have to worry about plugging in later, the easier it makes the build. I'm going to bring the 8-pin CPU connector up through the top here. Plug that in to the top left of the motherboard. This other 8-pin, 4+4 pin, I do not need that, so that's just going to be forever over there. Got our 24-pin for the motherboard. I'm going to go ahead and bring that through, we'll bring it through the top because the middle is going to have a lot of power supply cords for the PCI Express connectors for the graphics cards. Oh my goodness, why is this so hard to plug in? is the first time I've used this particular power supply, but I've never had trouble plugging in the 24 pin before. This is really strange. Huh. Well, there we go. Weird. I've never had so much trouble plugging in a 24 pin before. Maybe it's just unlucky. The plastic molding might have been a little messed up. I don't know. Typically for computer parts, everything should always plug in nice and easy. The slots are designed so that there's only one way that it can fit, you know? It's kind of strange that that was as hard as it was to get it in. But I suppose that's what she said. I don't know. So now we've got power to the motherboard. These are Molex. This is a Molex connector for the case fan controller. I'll go ahead and plug the front fan into that. And we can route this other fan through the back. And we can go ahead and plug this one in too. We can also begin to connect all of these things from the case to the motherboard. I don't know why the cat is making so much noise, but go ahead and bring this through the side. Actually, you know what? That's going to go through the bottom. We'll just do everything through the bottom. A small cap here you can remove. Once the cap is off, you can plug in the USB 3.0 thing. You can also go ahead and plug in the USB. And you can plug in the HD audio. I think. Oh wow, this is a big stretch. This is our HD audio cable. Oh wow, it like just barely doesn't reach. All right, there we go. Jeez. I'm not gonna move the camera back down. Next is just putting in the little buttons for like the LEDs, the power switch, the reset switch. The plus minus configuration doesn't matter on the switches, but it does matter on the LEDs. Just an FYI. Aslan, what are you doing? Pull out any slack. With the slack pulled out, I'll just go ahead and twist tie it down. Or not down, I guess I'm just twist tying it together right now. All right. So now we have almost everything ready to go. Actually, wait, let's do... The graphics cards are going to go in at the absolute end because you don't want to have to install anything else into the system around 2 graphics cards. It's a big pain in the ass because they take up a lot of space. Next thing we're going to do is our SATA cabling. Try to get the solid state drive to be plugged into the SATA cable 0 so that your motherboard recognizes it first. Isn't a big deal, but it makes life a little bit easier. Alright, SATA cables are installed for the drives. For our data drives, I guess. Now we'll go ahead and throw our SATA cable on for the hard disk drive, for the DVD drive. I'm just plugging in these into the SATA ports on the side of the motherboard. Okay. All of our physical connections are made for data, so now let's go ahead and power everything. this cable is going to give us SATA power. For the first stop is the DVD drive. I'm going to bring this through the back. We're also going to plug in both of our disk drives, well, our solid state drive and our hard disk drive. Now we've powered all of our accessory drives. Now we're going to need a Molex connector because we have this, we've got the case fan controller that we need to power because we have two fans plugged into that. Plug that into our power supply. And we're going to bring this down through the bottom. Got our Molex connector here. What are you guys doing to my chat? Okay, so we have power to the motherboard, power to all three of our accessory drives, power to the case, we've got our CPU and our RAM installed. All we have left to put in now are the graphics cards and the cooler. Let's go ahead and clean our desk off of all this extra junk that we've accumulated. The next thing we're going to take a look at is installing the radiator. So right now what I'm doing is preparing the bracket that goes on the back of the box. I probably shouldn't have put, or on the back of the motherboard, I probably shouldn't have put the camera up there yet. I may end up moving it. The way that this bracket works is you put 4 screw holders inside of the plastic. I guess you can kind of see it, right? I've got 2 in so far. And then you've got adhesives to kind of tape it, well, stick it to the back of the motherboard. And that's what your bracket for your cooler is going to screw into. Hold on, sorry, one second. I just have to make sure I have this bracket set up correctly so that we don't run into some bullshit. Yeah, there we go. All right. Scan the case up. Now peel this adhesive off the back. stick onto the motherboard. That's what we're going to be screwing in the bracket for the radiator into. Radiator, the CPU block, or the water block, I guess. That's what I should be saying. I'm going to go ahead and wipe off the top of the CPU. With our isopropyl alcohol. Just to make sure it's nice and clean. Alright, I think we're ready to stick this bad boy on there. I'll take the bottom off. Pretty self-explanatory how bracket fits onto the cooler. Oh. Hold on. Had everything flipped, or had it flipped the wrong way. Oops. Alright, let's try this one more time. Just lining up the screws with the screw holes in the mounting bracket. Just getting them all started by hand. And once they're all started by hand, I'm going to bring in a screwdriver and start tightening things. Somebody said, can you please explain the logic of pumping water into an electronic system? You're not actually pumping it into anything electronic, you're just pumping it over big blocks of metal that are taking heat away from the processor. At no point is there anything that's actually electrical coming into contact with the water, just giant blocks of metal. This the USB plugs into the motherboard to give us more control over the pump. I'm going to go ahead and route that behind the computer because we don't need this for now. Now we begin the fun installation of the radiator. Easily the most frustrating part of the entire computer build. Alright, fans always blow in the direction of the scoop. You can see the scoops, blow it in that direction. If you ever have a doubt, you can always check on the side. Usually there are arrows listed that will show you the direction of the airflow. I don't know if you can make that arrow out right here. Can you see that? There you go. Putting the fan such that I can route both of the fan cables out the back of the case. Push those down through the case right now. And now comes the nightmare of trying to get the radiator started. Basically, the screw is going through the top of the case into the radiator. Through the top of the case and through a fan and into the radiator. I wonder if using these little washers will help actually. No, they don't at all. If there was like a little nut or something that would keep these screws in place after they went through a fan, it would make the radiator installation so much easier. I would be so happy. In fact, if any water cooling started to do that, I would probably sell their stuff just for ease of installation. It would make things so much better. All the screws are in. Oh my god, I hate this shit. Now we have to get the radiator down in here. Let's see if we can start just one screw. If we can get just one screw started, everything will become much easier. Oh wow, did we get our first one? Really? Oh wow, this has been probably the easiest radiator installation I've ever done in my life. A lot of people argue whether or not to put the fans in a push or a pull setup, which means basically, should you be having the fans pushing air through the radiator? Should you be having fans pulling air from the radiator? And at the end of the day, the performance is pretty much identical between both worlds. I think some people argue that pull is a little bit easier to clean. I'm not sure if that's true or not. I don't think I've ever cleaned my computer out in my life. But then again, all of my H220s died before they ever got dusty, so. Let's go back and tighten all of these screws. The radiator is not something I ever want falling off, especially during shipping. All right, radiator's installed. Pull the fan cables through. This USB thing came from the pump. We're gonna route that down here. And we're gonna plug it into the motherboard. And we got it. There's actually something attached to the pump that we plug the fans into. Plugging that in right now. All right, so now we have pretty much everything plugged in and ready to go. The only thing missing being the graphics cards. What we have plugged in right now should theoretically be enough to get a BIOS screen. So I'm going to go ahead and throw a keyboard on this, just to make sure that all the parts that we have inside so far are working and that we didn't make any vital mistakes or huge mistakes in the D-lid. Go ahead and power the motherboard. sound of that pump is very strange. I've never heard this pump make that noise before. It's pretty worrying. Turn it off, turn it back on again, see if it goes away. I don't like this new BIOS screen. Alright, you come back, our CPU temp is around 25, so at least it doesn't look like we made any huge mistakes with the D-lid, although we won't know for sure until I start benching it. We see 8 gigs of RAM installed. We obviously see the CPU is working. We see our Samsung SSD, our 2 terabyte hard disk drive, and the DVD drive. So it looks like everything is recognized, which is good. Now it's time to install the graphics cards. Oh, these look really nice. Oh shit, never mind, no it doesn't. What the fuck? Maybe? I don't know. The top looks really nice. I've never seen a red board before. Damn, it's just... I guess it doesn't look bad, it just looks strange. The top looks nice. The board is pretty crazy. But I guess it works. Whoops. Right now I'm unscrewing the back little cage things that block the rear ports where you can put extra stuff into. These cards are 7970s. Dropping in both GPUs. I gotta take off these little side things. Oh, and I guess this thing too. Once I have the graphics cards inserted, screwing them back in just to reduce the strain on the motherboard during shipping. Take off the crossfire bridge port protectors. Throw on a crossfire bridge. lastly, we're going to run all the PCI Express power. All right. Is this one way longer though? Oh, this thing says. As with everything, we're going to route our PCI Express through the bottom and out the back. I wonder if it's long enough. Oh, there's no way that's long enough. Holy shit. Sorry, hold on. Holy crap. Alright. Jeez. Alright. Try one more test boot to make sure that the GPUs work. Cool, and I get a picture. I wish I knew why this pump was so loud. I feel like water's gonna leak out of this thing. Huh. There's not any super tight bends or anything, so I don't know why it would be making that noise unless the pump itself is bad. shake the pump? Do you think that would help? There you go. There's definitely air in the pump. Extra air should wind up in the reservoir at the top eventually, right? I'm not entirely sure. I don't know. When I go to bench and stress the system, I'll see if that noise goes away. I've heard that with some pumps it can start out with a little bit of noise and hopefully it goes away, but if not, then I'll have to do more reading to see if something is actually wrong, or if I have to get the pump RMA'd or something. You ever run into issues like that where your pump is making noise? You shouldn't be able to hear, well, I mean, obviously it's not going to be silent, but if you hear any noise, like water trickling, that shouldn't happen. You can RMA that pump and they will. Send you a new one, hopefully. Oh, otherwise I get a picture. Looks like everything works at least. Go ahead and put the back on, I guess. Oh, whoops. Here's what our inside ended up looking like. These are kind of ugly, I guess. Tuck them in here. I think for the most part everything is okay. I don't like how this cord comes out. I wish this was longer so you could route it around the back, plugging in the pump to the actual motherboard. We got our stick of RAM in. We were able to hide most of the cables behind the case. But I think for the most part everything looks fine. I don't think there's much we could have done differently. The reason why I went with the Thermaltake over the Corsair H100, I'm not sure. The fans that come with the Thermaltake are quieter than the HP100, or than the H100. I think the H100Is are SP100s, which can be pretty loud. Otherwise, I mean, you can go with either one. You'll probably be happy. The performance is pretty comparable between the two. I've had really good luck with the H100Is though, to be fair. I've had probably 10 or 15 of those and I haven't ran into a single bad one yet. Alright, I'll do all the overclocking and whatnot on this later, the benching to make sure that the dealer and everything else went fine. And then hopefully I'll check and see if that noise and that pump goes away, otherwise we'll have to end up tearing it out and RMAing it, but hopefully that doesn't happen. Otherwise, thanks a lot for watching. Link to the description of the build is in the description of the YouTube video. Thanks a lot. I love you all very much. Peace.